Now, usually I do this as a part of the Brandon's World Merry Christmas special, but this year I wanted to do my predictions for the NFL honors as it got closer to the actual awards hosting ceremony. So tonight, as we know, the NFL will honor its best players, its best coaches, its best plays of the season. So I'm going to be giving my predictions for who's going to win these awards. Let's start first with the NFL MVP award. The nominees for the award are as follows. You have Josh Allen, Bills quarterback, Lamar Jackson, Ravens quarterback, Joe Burrow, Bengals quarterback, Jared Goff, Lions quarterback, Saquon Barkley, Philadelphia Eagles running back. Now, you guys know the conversation that ever since Adrian Peterson won the award in 2012, every single time since then, the most valuable player award has gone to a quarterback. And in my opinion, that's not knocking a running back, it's not knocking a wide receiver, it's not knocking anybody on the other side of the ball. It is the fact that, as we know, quarterback, in my opinion, is the most prominent position, not just in the National Football League, in all of sports. There are talented rosters out there, there are talented teams out there. There are less talented teams with a great quarterback that win championships. I think we all agree that talent wise, toe for toe, Detroit is more talented than Kansas City. Baltimore is more talented than Kansas City. Buffalo is more talented than Kansas City. Philadelphia is more talented than Kansas City. But why are the Chiefs potentially going for a three-peat next Sunday in Super Bowl 59? Because they have the best quarterback in football. So to me, Joe Burrow would be more in this conversation if the Bengals made the playoffs. I thought it was more of his defense letting him down than anything. Jared Goff did not have the stats to me to win MVP. And I think that when Jalen Hurts went out of that game week 16 against Washington, and you saw the Commanders stack the box against Kenny Pickett and slow down Saquon Barkley, as great as Saquon Barkley has been, and he is going to break the record, including the postseason this year, for most rushing yards in one NFL season in history. And for my hope, could be a legitimate candidate to win Super Bowl MVP this year. The MVP of the regular season comes down to two quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. I have been saying all year that I thought Lamar Jackson is a very underrated season. I'm a big don't turn the football over guy when it comes to quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson only had four interceptions. And folks, all four of those interceptions were on tipped balls by his own receivers, meaning the man could have had zero turnovers all season long. However, I think the fact that he's won back to back MVPs, there's going to be voter fatigue. And the fact that he is also up for Offensive Player of the Year award, and so is his teammate Derrick Henry, that tells me Josh Allen is going to win this award. Speaking of Offensive Player of the Year award, I already alluded to the fact that Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are also on this list. So is Joe Burrow, who, again, I thought could have been MVP of the week if it wasn't for his defense letting him down. The fact they only won 9 games this year when they had the guy that threw the most touchdown passes in the league, when they had the guy that caught the most passes in the league, which is Ja'Marr Chase, who's on this list as Offensive Player of the Year, along with the guy that's on this list for Defensive Player of the Year because he had the most sacks in the league in Trey Anderson. I get all of it. But to me, the guy who had the best rushing season in the NFL since Eric Dickerson's record breaking season, he had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. I don't think he's the most valuable player in the league, but I do think he is the Offensive Player of the Year. There's a big difference to me between those two awards. I'm awarding it to Saquon Barkley. Defensive Player of the Year award. Now, we have three guys on this list that are seemingly always on there, two especially. Miles Garrett, TJ Watt, they're consistently on there. They're two of the top five defensive players in the league for sure. You have Patrick Surtain, who is always going to be a shutdown corner on there. This year, he was by far maybe right up there with Quinyon Mitchell from the Philadelphia Eagles. Spoiler alert there on potential defensive rookie of the year there. Um, you have Trey Anderson, who I already alluded to, led the league in sacks this year, but the only linebacker on this list, and the man who I think will win Defensive Player of the Year, goes to Philadelphia Eagle linebacker Zach Bond, who was brought in off the New Orleans Saints special teams unit by Vic Fangio, who thought he could turn Zach Bond from an outside linebacker to middle linebacker, completely change the Philadelphia Eagles defense this year. He's the number one graded linebacker this year in the NFL by Pro Football Focus. He had the most tackles in the NFL this year. And he, along with the two defensive backs and Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, of course, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, those Georgia guys up front helped as well. But one of the biggest reasons why the Eagles defense went from bottom third in the league this year to number one, and why they're going back to the Super Bowl, the leading tackler in the NFC Championship game, Zach Bond, is an incredible story, something that none of us, even the deepest Philadelphia Eagles fan, would have thought before the year, which is why he gets this award. Offensive Rookie of the Year award. Boy, these guys, Bo Nix, Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, they all put up great numbers. I mean, Brock Bowers became instantly, maybe even surpassing Travis Kelce and George Kittle as the best tight end in the NFL already, even though he was on a crap team in the Raiders. Malik Neighbors was the only reason to watch the New York Giants offense this year. And despite the struggles of his team, Brian Thomas prove that he is another LSU wide receiver that belongs in this league. And Bo Nix, I didn't think the Denver Broncos were going to be a playoff team. I thought Bo Nix was going to be good under Sean Payton. I did not think he was going to be this good this early to bring Denver to the postseason in that final game by knocking off the Chiefs. But again, just like Bo Nix, Jayden Daniels, who I predicted the Washington Commanders to make the playoffs this year under first year head coach Dan Quinn. I did not expect Jayden Daniels to have a MVP-esque type season. I mean, he made CJ Stroud's season from a year ago when everybody was talking about if CJ Stroud had the greatest rookie season in NFL history. Think about this. Jayden Daniels made it look pedestrian. That's how good that kid is. And a lot of people think Jayden Daniels is already the best quarterback in his own conference. And he's getting compared to Patrick Mahomes. I know this is a regular season award and the postseason does not factor in, but nonetheless, Jayden Daniels is to me unanimous Offensive Rookie of the Year. To me, this should also be unanimous. The Defensive Rookie of the Year, as great as Cooper DeJean has been in the slot for my Philadelphia Eagles at the nickelback, and ever since being inserted in Week 6 against the Cleveland Browns following the Eagles' Week 5 bye, that is when the Eagles' defense really turned around. And as good as Jared Verse has been and Brandon Fish rushing the passer for the Los Angeles Rams, and Chop Robinson has been rushing the passer for the Miami Dolphins. Quinyon Mitchell, I alluded to this earlier when talking about Patrick Surtain. I thought at times this year you could have made a case. Quinyon Mitchell, as a rookie, was the best corner in the NFL. He was constantly on the number one wide receiver of the other team. And the Eagles, excuse me, the Eagles did not play no slouch of number one wide receivers this year. Drake London, Mike Evans, Jamar Chase, George Pickens, Amari Cooper at the time when he was in Cleveland, Terry McLaurin. Malik Neighbors, who we just talked about, Brian Thomas, and we just talked about these guys that are up for these Offensive Rookie of the Year awards. And Quinyon Mitchell shut them all down. So to me, without a doubt, he is the Defensive Rookie of the Year. Let's go to Comeback Player of the Year. For Comeback Player of the Year. Now, there is some speculation on this. Some people think that it's just a guy coming back from injury, like a Joe Burrow, like a J.K. Dobbins. Some people think it can be a guy that, really struggled for years and then had a great pop-out season, like Sam Darnold did in Minnesota. I'm on the former here. I interpret Comeback Player of the Year as a guy that was injured the previous season, came back and played well the next year, which is why I believe Joe Burrow is going to win this award. Let's go to Coach of the Year, who some people think should go to a guy like Andy Reid or a Dan Campbell. They had the best record on the season. Some people believe it should go to a guy who got his team to the playoffs or had a great team with no expectations coming into the year, like a Dan Quinn in Washington or a Sean Payton in Denver. I'm on the latter on this, which is why I think even though they lost in the wild card round of the Los Angeles Rams, even though they did lose their potential to be the number one seed in the NFC with their loss week 18 to the Detroit Lions, nobody expected the Minnesota Vikings to be competing for the NFC North, let alone be competing for the number one seed this year. I made a case the Denver Broncos could make the playoffs. I didn't predict they would, but I made a case they could. I predicted Dan Quinn to make the playoffs. I predicted Dan Campbell and Andy Reid to have stellar seasons for their football teams. I thought the Vikings could be good, 7, 8 wins. I thought Sam Darnold would have a productive year with Minnesota and those weapons. I did not think at times this year Sam Darnold would be in the MVP conversation. I think Evan O'Connell is a quarterback whisperer, which is why I think it would be a big mistake if the Minnesota Vikings moved on from JJ McCarthy, because I think with a young coach, a young quarterback like that, I think Kevin O'Connell could make it work. I like Kevin O'Connell. I think he's the coach of the year. Assistant coach of the year nominee nominees are Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator of the Vikings, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, the offensive and defensive coordinators of the Detroit Lions. But I think it's without a question Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles, who had brought the Eagles defense, as mentioned earlier today, from the 30th ranked defense in 2023 to the number one ranked defense in 2024. It was the biggest turnaround out of any unit, specifically in the NFL, which is why, for me, he gets the nod. Finally, let's go to the NFL play of the year.
Four-man rush. Rodgers to the end zone. And Wilson, can he one-handed and stay in bounds? They say he was out.
The only chance would be the knee if it came down. He has the ball. What a catch. Waiting for that other foot, just doesn't get down. The knee is close. That's what the crowd is reacting to.
What a grab, though. One-handed.
Oh, my gosh. Ridiculous catch.
The play clock is running.
Yeah, that maybe the shin gets down.
Garrett Wilson catch was absolutely phenomenal. So, to recap, my NFL honors predictions for who is going to win the 2024 NFL awards. MVP, Josh Allen. Offensive Player of the Year, Saquon Barkley. Defensive Player of the Year, Zach Bond. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jane Daniels. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Quinyon Mitchell. Comeback Player of the Year, Joe Burrow. Coach of the Year, Kevin O'Connell. Assistant Coach of the Year, Vic Fangio. The Play of the Year, Garrett Wilson's toe tap catch on